I think a lot of people here retire early and assume you have to be perfect. Perfect plan, perfect discipline, perfect execution. And I'm going to be honest, that has not been our experience at all. In fact, we almost got this completely wrong because what I don't hear people talk about is what happens when you go too far. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ruby and this is the Joneses Shows piece. On this channel, we're documenting our journey to early retirement and living intentionally, ultimately building a life of freedom and peace. And today I want to talk about a mistake we almost made while planning this journey. Now, I'm an accountant. I reconcile everything to the penny. That's just how my brain works. So when my husband and I made the decision that we were going to retire early, I took it seriously. Probably a little too seriously, but seriously. Because in my mind, every dollar had a job. Every dollar needed to be accounted for, saved, invested, or planned. And on paper, it looked great. But in real life, it started to feel very different. Let me paint you a picture. There were periods where I had our budget so tight, and I mean tight, we weren't really enjoying ourselves, barely spending, constantly thinking about saving. And everything felt like a decision between do we really need this or should this go to savings? And it got to a point where spending money didn't feel normal anymore. It actually felt stressful. It felt like we were doing something wrong. And that's when I realized something was off. There were times when Gerard would bring up wanting to buy something like a riding lawnmower or a kayak or even a hobby car. I mean, I'm still a little against this hobby car business, I'm not going to lie. But my first reaction wasn't, okay, let's talk about it. It was stress, like literally stress and panic and just a hesitation. It was just me immediately thinking, how does this affect the plan? And even for myself, if I needed new clothes, or honestly, right now, I want a new sofa. And even now, I still feel guilty just thinking about spending money, not because we couldn't afford it, but because I didn't want to spend it. And that's where the problem started. Because when you get too strict with your money, a few things happen. You start to feel restricted. You start to feel anxious about spending. You start to question normal decisions. And over time, that can turn into frustration and even resentment. And if your plans start to feel like a burden, you're not going to stick to it because at the end of the day, if it's not sustainable, it's not going to work. And I had to check myself because just because we're planning to retire early doesn't mean we have to live life on hold for the next 10 years. That's not the goal. We're not trying to escape life. We're trying to build a better one. And I really had to just be with myself and think about that and let that resonate with me because I was just so focused on we got to save this money. We're planning to retire early. I don't want the plan to fail. So I had to come to that realization. So I had to make a course correction, y'all. I had to. I had to shift my mind from don't spend anything to being intentional about how we spend. And that's where the accountant in me really came in. I started thinking about things differently. Wants versus needs, the life of an item, depreciation, and whether a purchase actually makes sense over time. Not just what it costs today, but what it costs over 5, 8, even 10 years. So instead of asking, should we spend this money? I started asking, does this add value to our life? And I want y'all to remember that when you're looking to purchase something and you're planning and saving for retirement, just keep that question in your mind. Does this add value to our life? Because the goal isn't just to save money, it's to build a life that you actually enjoy while you're working toward your future. And I don't want my husband feeling restricted, and I don't want to feel guilty every time I want something either, especially when the whole point is freedom. So if you're on this journey, don't make the mistake I made. Don't become so focused on the future that you stop living the present, because it's not about choosing one or the other. It has to be both. We're still learning, still adjusting, still making course corrections. But that's what the journey actually looks like. Not perfect, just intentional. And that's how we're getting there.